So this one is called How Progressive. So most people on this channel will already know that I was a teacher for 35 years. And I taught in both the private and the public sector. So both in state schools and in private schools. And there's a lot of things that people don't understand about the teaching profession. And I've already done a couple of videos about that, and I'll certainly do some more. But one thing that people do get right about teaching is that they think that most teachers are left-wing. And I don't know if you've noticed these days, a lot of left-wingers, they self-identify as being progressive. Now I remember, this is in my last job, I remember this doing a mock interview for a girl who was applying to, it was either Oxford or Cambridge, I can't remember which now. She's a very good candidate, but she'd been taught politics by somebody who had, let's say, I'm sure he would self-identify as left-wing and progressive, but he had some quite interesting, some might say extreme points of view. So when I did this mock interview with this girl, she kept on coming out with this word, progressive. And just me being me, I just said to her, well, can you define that? Because basically she was doing what most students do. This is what the educational system primes them all to do, is to become repeater stations. So no doubt she'd heard her teacher talking about, I don't know if it was in the days of Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton, but they would have been deemed progressive. So that sounds good, doesn't it? Whereas Trump probably would have been defined as far right, fascist, definitely not progressive. So anyway, she couldn't really answer. So I basically said to her, look, it's not a good idea to just recycle words and repeat them when you don't really know what the word actually means. And I basically went through her with what progressive might actually mean. What does it actually mean? And then what I'll do now is actually talk about progressivism in the context of the last 3 or 4 years. So, progressives, they like to assert that they believe in human rights. Progressives think that human rights are important, and they'll claim that they will defend human rights. So I saw some of this when I was at school. Some people did some cracking assemblies, about the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany, that government that ran Germany in the 1930s. And they weren't progressive because the government treated people unequally according to their ethnicity. Which is wrong, of course it's wrong. But then what I find really funny now is that a lot of progressives support the same policy that the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany were using. So they'll say that the state should treat its citizens differently according to ethnicity or race. So, for example, it's perfectly okay to use what's called positive discrimination. The clue's in the name, discrimination. But that doesn't stop them from claiming that they're progressive. So they don't really believe that in the base, when it comes down to it, they don't really believe that governments should treat their own citizens equally. So they don't believe in that. So when they say that they're progressive, by their very own standards, they're not. If you talk to these people as well, they'll recycle stuff like Black Lives Matter, they'll use that as a political tool to gain promotion. You know, certainly I definitely saw that white blokes or white women jumping on those bandwagons basically for their own end. Don't think they actually believed in it, but they just went along with it because it was flavour de jour, and yeah, for reasons of self-interest. So all this stuff about white privilege, you know, progressives but actually believe in that white privilege, that you know, somebody like me that lived in a caravan when I was growing up. Not told you about that one before. That's another story for another time. You know, that basically I went to a comprehensive school. I don't, you know, anyway, it wasn't great. It wasn't great. There was lots of things that weren't great. And I certainly didn't feel as though I was privileged. Yeah, but you know, according to my skin colour, that's me condemned according to these people. And they call themselves progressive. And what they think is that there should be, the state should treat people unequally in order to address past injustices, you know, like, I don't know, slavery or something. Because of course I was alive in 1740 and I directly profited from slavery, of course I did. But anyway, progressives believe in this. They believe in the state exercising its power arbitrarily over its citizens, picking winners and losers. That's progressive, yeah? The idea of white privilege and the government intervening to achieve social justice. Now for me, because I'm a student of history, I can also remember another government that pursued social justice. And again, let's go back in time to the 1930s and the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany. Because what they said was that a particular, I'm not sure if we could say ethnic or religious group, we all know who they are. I'm not going to say the name of the group because this video will just get suppressed. But we all know which group. So you had some politicians who came along and they said all of your problems is based on them. So they used this religious group, ethnic group, as a scapegoat. And they appealed to lazy people, people that wanted other people's stuff. You know, they wanted their possessions, basically. They wanted the state to achieve social justice by getting the state, because remember, this party was elected as well. Go and use the power of the state, the people with the big sticks, to go and steal this group's stuff and then give it to us. Okay, how progressive. But that's basically exactly the same principle as white privilege. Exactly the same principle. You basically take a group of people, you tar them with the same brush. They're all exploiters. You know, you're white, therefore you're bad. Therefore, the state is entitled to take, maybe hit you with new laws that confiscate your private property. Maybe, you know, in our case in the future, it probably would be high taxes. I wouldn't rule that out at all. And then that money can then be redistributed to the group that the politicians have deemed to be oppressed. Yeah? So, how progressive is that? I don't think so. I would say that is incompatible with basic human rights. So for me, what I would say basic human rights is that the state should treat all of its citizens equally, always. Glasses have steamed up. It's a hot one today in Finland. I think we've only got -1 or -2 glasses have steamed up. So yeah, so let's bring things right up to date. The last 4 years. So did you notice that a lot of the people that would self-identify as left-wing and progressive, when D91 came along, these people, they all of a sudden, they forgot about human rights, didn't they? You know, these people that were supposed to be, you know, so passionate about protecting people's human rights, all of a sudden they started supporting biomedical fascism, didn't they? What? So let's talk a little bit about that. I did a video actually. It was addressed at this guy who's he's head of department at a private school in Surrey, and basically he told me by email that he thought it was perfectly fair, perfectly moral to for people that hadn't had the procedure, for them to be thrown out of society. You know, people that hadn't had the sheep dip, people who didn't consent to the sheep dip, not allowed to go to pubs, not allowed to go to restaurants, not allowed to go on holiday, and in many cases not even allowed to keep their jobs, to earn an income. Wow. Wow. How progressive. Yeah? Your human rights being conditional on you having whatever medical treatment that the state has told you to have, or is trying to coerce you into having. How progressive. This is the very opposite of what human rights are about. Human rights are about you having the right to work, to go where you want, without being coerced by the state, without you know, these kind of mandates of, or what I call the Nazi passport. These things were the opposite of basic human rights. These things were about as unprogressive as could be. But the irony is, a lot of the all of the self-styled left-wingers, they were all in favour of it. So here's the point, right? Of course, we know that the left-wing, right-wing dichotomy is just out of date. It's completely out of date. And because what we've actually got ourselves into is a situation where we can choose between left-wing authoritarianism and right-wing authoritarianism. And also what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to define what progressivism actually means. Progressivism means authoritarianism. It means that the citizen must abide by whatever rules and regulations that the state passes, and the state can take away your basic human rights on a whim whenever they want. That's what progressivism actually means. But I think the new divide that we need to get our heads around politically is, do you support authoritarianism, or do you support individual freedom, liberty and personal responsibility? That's the dividing line. Are you authoritarian? Do you believe in a big government model and citizens, their only role is just to obey the state? Or do you believe in individual freedom and liberty? So let's get rid of this left-wing, right-wing stuff, because it's a nonsense. You either believe in authoritarianism or you don't. Personally, I don't. I find modern left-wing authoritarianism as, you know, people like Sir Keir Starlin. I find that way of governing people as morally repugnant as Boris Johnson's, what would you call that? Centrist authoritarianism. I don't know what you would call the Chinese government. You know, they're left-wing, aren't they, I guess, because they're sort of communist. But I would find that as morally repugnant as right-wing, so-called right-wing progressivism of the National Socialist German Workers' Party. It's all authoritarian. So yeah, one more time, the divide really is, do you believe in authoritarianism or do you believe in individual freedom and liberty? I'll say something else as well to people that two other guys from Rochdale that I used to know that would both self-identify as left-wing and progressive. Both of these people were in favour of biomedical fascism. I think when push comes to shove, they would have been in favour of having people who refuse the sheep dip, having them quarantined in camps. And what I would say to these people is, you don't respect human rights. You're bad people. You're dangerous people. You're people who are naturally inclined towards authoritarianism, and that isn't a good person in my book. And you can virtue signal as much as you want to do about these authoritarian movements like BLM and I don't know, the alphabet movement and whatever, but that doesn't change the fact that you believe in authoritarianism. You believe that the state has got a divine right to tell people what to do and to make their human rights conditional on dancing to whatever tune the state asks people to, or demands that people dance to. So I always like to end on a positive, optimistic note. So what do we do with these people? You know, the people that supported biomedical fascism, you know, either getting involved in it themselves, you know, maybe like somebody who worked in one of those places where they gave out the Britney Spears concerts, or maybe, you know, your kids took on a high-vis jacket to make sure that that shops and other places were abiding with the slave muzzle compliance regulations. You know, what do we do? These people eventually will need to face justice, as I've said like countless times before. We're talking here prison sentences. We're also talking having their assets seized, sold off, and then the proceeds used to compensate people who lost their businesses and their jobs because they refused to go along with biomedical fascism. But you know, that might take a bit of time. But it will happen. It definitely will happen. Because the alternative is like some sort of horrible Mad Max situation where justice and the rule of law breaks down. So I really hope that doesn't happen. Anyway, we don't know what how the future exactly is going to pan out to a time scale, but we know roughly what's going to be happening. So what do we do in the meantime? Well, I was watching Sanity for Sweden. So there's this guy called Stefan, and I'm guessing that nearly everybody that subscribes to me subscribes to Stefan. His brother is sadly no longer with us because you know, he took the sheep dip, which is very, very sad. I really like this guy, Stefan. He reminds me a lot of the Finnish guys that we see out here in the sticks in Satakunta. So what they call a basic Finn, a man. No nonsense, tells you how it is. Also, the thing that he has that loads of Finns have is this bone dry sense of humour. Awesome. So anyway, on Saturday he does this video and he comes up with an idea to use against people that went along with the biomedical fascism, because as he said, there's a lot of people, you know, these progressive PC authoritarians, they want to try and pretend that it never happened. So what we need to do is to remind them that it happened. We need to kind of trigger these people and take the mickey out of them. So he comes up with this idea. And the idea is, when somebody approaches you and they try to get you to buy something, so Could be. It's a dog here. Yeah, so he says, when somebody's trying to get you to buy something, what you say to them is, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but I'm un-Britney Spears. I'm really sorry, but I can't buy this because I'm un-Britney Spears." Now, when I looked at the comments, I don't think most people got Stefan's bone-dry humour. They didn't really understand it. But basically, it's a massive, massive piss take. And it will be... It fulfills one of the main criteria of like waking up normies, and that is to ask them questions and to get them to think. So to ask a question like that, it's going to defeat their programming because they haven't been programmed into responding to a question like that, where what you're doing is just reversing their logic. So they'll thinking like, what does he mean? Like, you know, he can't buy anything because he's un-Britney Speared. So you get them to think. They think, it's not in force anymore, is it? Well, so what they ask, and then they'll start thinking about what actually happened, and maybe that might prick their conscience. So anyway, that's all I want to say today. I hope that's not been too rambly, but yeah, the main point that I was getting across is that many of the kind of left-wingers that identify as being progressive and big supporters of human rights, well, their actions have proven that they're absolute colossal hypocrites. And when push came to shove, these self-styled progressives actually did nothing. Well, they did nothing different to what the National Socialist Workers' Party did in Germany in the 1930s. They believe in authoritarianism. They can call themselves, you know, a banana, whatever. They can self-identify as a tractor or something. But the bottom line is that these people are authoritarian because that's what they supported. So that's all I want to say today. So God bless.